If you are here, let me see you. If you are here, let me see. If you are here, let me see you. Let me see you. If you are here, let me see you. Francis N. Okay, some guys are coming in. Peter Nweke, Chukwuka Egbu, Stanley Odebatu, James Chigoziem, Chidi Eric Joseph, Isdo, Kelechukwu, Nika. Okay. Unebu. Who is Hand Moti? Justin Pugh. Okonkwo McDonald. Okonkwo McDonald is even there twice. Onuzulike. Kosiso. Obiekwe. Okay. Sika. Where Doga? Okay. Mary Chadwell, welcome. Okay. The number is rising. Okay. We are 28 here. Let the number keep rising so that we can start. Chidobem James. Okay, I can see you. Felix, can see you. Okay. Still 29. We need more attendance, please. Hilary Emeka. Agwe Emmanuel. Okay. Ugwebu Felix. JB Ama. Who is JB Ama? What's your real name? Ugwebu. Okay, Michael, I can see you. Okay. Ezekiel Christian. We have 30 in attendance. Asomuga Kizito, I can see you. Michael Chisum. Okonkwo McDonald, yes, I saw you already. Who is Marshall Mma? Okay, Vincent Anochia. Justin Zigado. Chidolwe, okay. JP. Nzadibe Vincent, okay. Tony Chinedu. Anike Emmanuel. Who is this? Okafo. Kosrep, are you here? Kosrep, if you are here, let me see you. Where do I go now? Henry, okay. Also Emmanuel Chisholm. Okay. You are living innocent. Who is that? Okay, okay, living innocent. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the group. Patrick Wiki. Okay, 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 okay. Please tell them we need more to join. You are just 43 here. Mm. You are just 43 here. You are just 40, even 41. I don't know. I'm tempted to start calling them here online. I don't know because from your exams you wrote, from the exams you wrote, I have serious doubts that some of you actually come here online to learn. Because I don't understand why simple things we discussed here online is as if some of you didn't even see the scheme of work I gave. I don't know. Yeah, I'm fine. Patrick, I'm fine. I don't know. I don't want to make it childish by calling them here online, but I expect you guys to be mature enough to make yourself available when it is time for class here. I don't know. Assistant course rep, Michael Chisom. What about the okay course rep? I've seen you, Kingsley Amuche. Okay, 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 Kingsley. Kingsley, what's up with your mates? We can't have more than 40 names present here. Anyway, I'll just have to continue. Now, I would like you to know, it's a new course, it's a new semester. I would like you to know the modality we shall be following. I don't know if you have seen this book. This is the book we shall be using. Have you seen this book? Philosophy of Language by Benjamin Ewelu. We shall be using it. If you have it, just go and read from the first chapter to the last. It's a small book of 6 chapters. In fact, 5 chapters. The last chapter is just conclusion, closing remark. So it is 5 chapters. We are going to cover the whole 5 chapters. As a matter of fact, this morning, I'm going to cover chapter 1 and chapter 2. Now, listen and listen good. Listen and listen good. Now, before you go for your short break on Easter, you are going to do an assessment. It's not just a joke. It will be based on what we do here, because since your campus was fully accredited, University of Ibadan has been disturbing us. They said we should do more than one assessment, and the dean has been troubling us. So you will do that one, and you also do a term paper, and that is why you have to be present here in class. That is why you have to be present here in class. So before you go for your short Easter break, you will do one test. It will be recorded, because I will submit evidence of that test, and then you will do another one during your revision week. So it will be 2 tests. All of them will come from here. So that you have to be present, you have to be active. So you have to get this book. If you don't have it, find it. You can go to the dean's office. I think they have few copies there left. Get it. If you cannot get it from there, I don't know, you might maybe get from the previous set, or you can even come and get my own and duplicate. But I think they have copies of this remaining in the dean's office. There are 6 chapters of this book. You are going to cover the whole 6 chapters. 5 specifically, because the last chapter, chapter 6, is concluding remarks. We don't need it. So chapter 1 to chapter 5 will be covered for this book. So get it and start reading. So today we'll focus on chapters 1 and chapters 2. Bros, I don't know how much it is. Just go to the dean's office. I don't know how much it is. It's not my book. I don't know, but I don't think it's more than 2,000 naira or 1,500. Just go there and make inquiries. Now, I'm going to make this thing very easy. I'm going to make it very easy for all of us. At the end of each class, as I usually do, I'm going to leave for you possible questions, both for the assessment and for the exams. When I leave these questions, they are very, very important. Go develop them. Now, you also see that in the course of the lectures, I will be emphasizing specific areas in the book. You don't need to read the whole chapters. Just note the areas where I emphasize. Those are things I need you to know. Note the areas where I lay emphasis. Like today, I'm going to do chapter 1 and chapter 2. You will notice that there are aspects of chapter 1 and chapter 2 where I'm going to emphasize on. Those are the areas I need you to pay close and rapt attention to, so that you can score. It's very, very important. Assessment in Big now is golden. It's very, very important, because the kind of noise the department makes about assessment is serious. And that is why you see that most of the lecturers now in these last exams, you discover that they'll be very, very careful in scoring your assessment, because you have to show evidence for the score you are given. So it's not like before, where you can consider a student that is underperforming and then use assessment score to just push him. So this time around is not going to be like that. So you have to be present, you have to be active, you have to make effort. You have to make effort. All right. So philosophy of language. When you hear philosophy of language, what is it that comes to your mind? As you know, philosophy, as philosophers, we speculate in almost every aspect of human life. Not almost, on every aspect of human life: science, religion, culture, aesthetics, arts, music. We preoccupy ourselves with speculations, with discussions, with critical analysis of all aspects of human life. And that is why you have philosophy of every aspect of life. We have philosophy of money, philosophy of child upbringing, philosophy of life, philosophy of science, philosophy of education, philosophy of medicine, and so on. So philosophy is a vast discipline, and it explores and critiques or even analyzes all aspects of human life. So philosophy of language is the branch of philosophy that preoccupies itself with language as a medium of communication. It tries to find out not just the meaning of words, but the impact words spoken and heard have on human persons during interaction. That is what we are here for. So basically, we'll be looking at language as a tool for communication, but we are going to be looking at it philosophically. And there are many problems we are going to tackle as it concerns language. And one of them is going to be the problem of translation. But to proceed, we are going to begin by looking at the meaning of language. Because for you to do philosophy of language, you have to know what language means. Am I communicating? I hope you can hear me clearly. If I'm too fast, you call my attention. You can actually make a note. Okay? So, language, what does it mean? What does it mean? I'm going to make it very, very simple. Very, very simple. Language is an ambiguous word. It's laden, is filled with so much ambiguity. So when you say language, basically, there is ambiguity. There are many things that may be understood when you mention the word language, especially as it concerns English expression. Because if you go to other languages like French, Latin, they have different words for language. You have language, lingua, and the rest of them. But for English, when you mention language, when you talk about language, there is only one word to communicate what language is. Whereas in other languages like Latin and French, you have three different expressions that communicate the same meaning that the English word language communicates. So in English language, when you talk about language and the meaning, it can be very, very ambiguous. So basically, language can mean three things. It can mean three things. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. One, language can refer to what? A general means of communication. A general means of communication. A general means of communication. A general means through which people express and exchange information. That's what language can mean. This meaning is conventional, is broad, is all-encompassing. That is one. Then language can also mean mother tongue. It can also mean mother tongue. By that, it can mean a language, a means of communication that is particular and peculiar to a given culture, a given race, a given people. For instance, here you talk about Igbo language, French language, Yoruba language, Efik language, Tiv language. In such wise that what? In this second understanding of language, it is only the specific people involved in that culture that are able to know, master, and communicate in that mother tongue. Somebody is saying exact language, except others are taught. So I've talked about two branches. I've talked about general language as a general and conventional means of communication, a generalized form. Then I've talked about language as mother tongue, where you have Nigerian language like Pidgin, you have Hausa language, and so on, referring to mother tongue. Then you also have language as a speech technique. That is language as a particular person's unique way of speaking. Do you understand me? So there are three forms. So you can talk about language as a general conventional form of speaking. For instance, everybody speaks language. You can call somebody, you can say, I like your language. Language as a general form. Everybody has language. Then you can talk about language as mother tongue, a particular means of expression, of communication that is specific, that is peculiar, that is particular to a particular race, tribe, nation. And then you can talk about language as what? As an individual's specific way of communicating as an individual. And in that sense, it means speech. So you can talk about now, the three different ways of understanding language is what? Language as an all-encompassing method of communication that involves the universe. Then you talk about language as mother tongue. That is language that concerns a particular tribe, that refers to a particular tribe, race, culture, how they communicate. And then you talk about language as a person's particular means of communicating. That is language as speech. Is it clear? So these are three major ways language may be understood as the English word language means. In other languages like French and Latin, this ambiguity is not there because they have three different words to capture these three different aspects of language. But in English language, in grammar, in English language, once you say language, it is not separated. It could be referring to all or any of these three divisions. So you have to know them. I hope it's clear enough. I hope it's clear enough. So that if you talk about, for instance, today you talk about the language of the world. Technology is the language of the world. That is a general usage. You can talk about everybody has language. Everybody communicates. That is, you are talking about general language. But when you now talk about, hey, from what tribe are you? From what nation are you? What language does your tribe speak? You are looking at the second division of language, That is language as a means or mode of communication that is particular to a particular tribe or nation. Okay? And then you can talk about now my own particular way of communicating. For instance, if I'm writing a speech, or if I'm writing something, or if I'm delivering a speech, that is my own particular language. How I express myself using maybe a generally accepted kind of language. So I just saw what somebody did here. So you can consider the first one, you can describe the first one as universal language. Right? It can help us. You can describe the first one as universal language. Somebody said general conventional means of communication. Very good. Who is that? Patrick Obina. That's good. Then second one, thank you for this your contribution. Second one is dialect. Dialect. Igbo dialect. Yoruba dialect. And then the third one is personal way of communicating as speech. Perfect. Hello, are you there? Can you hear me? Sorry for the Obinna, your idea is correct. So general conventional means of communication, that's one. Then dialects, that's two. And then personal means of communication, speech. Okay? Speech. Now, philosophically, we are more concerned with the last two. We're more concerned with the last two because general means of communication may not always apply. Because it's not always applicable. There are places you go, no matter how generalized the environment is, you might struggle to communicate. So at the end of the day, each person has a particular way of communication. There's a place you go because you are new in the environment and you are a human being. Somehow you still need to communicate. You might begin to use sign. That's convention. But in philosophy, we are more concerned with formal systems of communicating. The ones that are structured, that have a formal set of vocabulary, that are recognized. And those two forms are language as dialect and language as a mode of speech. So those two are the ones we are going to be involved with. And they are the two that has significance and relate so much with some of the problems in philosophy of language. And already one of the major stalwarts or the major contributors on this in discourses concerning philosophy of language handles it, Gilbert Ryle. He tries to distinguish between speech and language. Speech and language. The language I'm talking about now is dialect, not convention. Speech and dialect. Speech and language. But just know when I talk about language there, I'm referring to dialect. So what is the difference between the two? What is the difference with Gilbert Ryle is a big name. He is also a Cartesian. He also contributed in the intentionality crisis, right? The problem that Descartes started with his mind-body dualism. He's the one that, Gilbert Ryle is the one that wrote the dream theory and used it to tackle Descartes, the Cartesian problem of interactionism. So now, it is very, very important that you know how Gilbert Ryle systematically differentiated between what? Between language and speech. It is very, very important. You can't escape it. You must, as a matter of fact, know the ambiguity surrounding the concept, language. I've just explained it. These are the only two things I need you to know in chapter 1. Then the second one is what? How Gilbert Ryle distinguished between what? Language as dialect or general means of communication and speech. Now, he made a very, very sweet differentiation. Now, language, he says, is a system of communication between members of a given community. Is a system of communication between members of a given community. We are partly taught, it can be taught, and we can pick it up randomly. Right? That is language. We can pick it up randomly. What does it mean by we can pick it randomly? Sometimes you don't need to go to school to learn any language. You don't need your parents to start telling you, in Igbo, come is bia, go is gawa, and so on. Sometimes it is just by being present in the environment where the language is used. By being present and by observation and listening, paying attention, come to learn the language. So it's a general means of communication peculiar, particular to a people, which may be taught or may just be picked up through observation. That's what Gilbert Ryle is saying. Speech, on the other hand, is the activity, or rather, the clan of activities of saying something. See, what this man is saying is that what? Language. Language is a general means of communication within a place. It is a system. It's a system of communicating. But speech is the activity of communicating using that particular language. For instance now, English is a language, but I can make a speech out of English language using my own technique. So I know English language, I can speak it. But when I use English language to communicate, I am making a speech. So the language is the system. The speech is the activity. I don't know that I'm communicating at all. So that behind every speech is a formal means of communication that is generally accepted within a particular people. But within that, I can use that particular general system to do what? To interact in my own unique way. So language is systematic, is a system, is systematic, but speech is pragmatic, is an activity. I hope it's clear. So that is one of the difference. Then let's see another difference he made. I've said it. So while language is a system or a deposit of words meant for communication in a given social community, speech is the activity of making or using any of those many languages, those systems to communicate. Okay? So you can, that's the major difference he gave there. That's the major difference he gives there. So another way you can differentiate is that what, in a layman's way, is that what, you can also say language is conventional. It's conventional. Everybody can use language, but speech is particular, is specific, in the sense that you can see that maybe everybody can communicate in English language, but not everybody can give a speech using English language, because the language is conventional, is everybody's property, but speech is particular, is a personal property. Right? So what it means is that what? Whereas language might or may be picked up, it may not be taught. Speech must be taught. Speech must be taught, because you have to learn how to use that language in communicating. That is what speech is about. That is what speech is about. So generally, you can, if you read through what Try says in page 2 of that book, you discover that he says it in different ways. He says it in different ways, but the major difference he makes there is that what? That language is conventional, is a general means of communication, is a system, whereas speech is an activity. It is the act of communicating using language. So when you communicate using a particular language, you have made that language your personal property. You have personalized it. So your speech becomes your personal language of communicating. That it is personal doesn't mean that others will not understand it. They will understand it because you are using the general stock of words within the language you share with them to communicate. However, it is personal because you have find a way to use that language in a personal way to communicate an information that is particular, that is personal to you, to them. I hope it's making sense. What does Savage? So he said, then language as a speech technique. Savage, what did you say here? I can't understand you. Then language, okay, is a technique as a particular ways of speaking. Which one are you trying to describe there? Which one are you trying to describe there? Which one? Now, listen. There's what we call solexism. When you make, listen. Another important difference between speech and language, very, very important, is that what? Listen very well. Now, because language is a general stock, there is a collection of vocabulary. Everybody knows because it is open, is official, is formal way of communicating. Everybody knows how the words should be used. Listen, so that it means that when you make an error in language, the person you are trying to communicate with already knows what you are trying to say. He will say, oh, I understand. I understand. Or sometimes you see that I am writing something on the board. It is because you know the language. I'm using general language. And I now make a mistake, an error. You tell me, oh, sir, it is not is was. Because you already know the stock of words in that language I should be using. I'm using a general form of communication. So that now a mistake in language cannot lead to absurdity. We call it solexism. SOLECISM. A mistake in language does not lead to absurdity. We call it solexism. Why? Because anybody can fill it in. Anybody can say, oh, even though he's making a mistake, I know what he's trying to say. Because we share the same language. But a mistake in speech leads to absurdity, meaninglessness. And that is why if somebody is presenting a paper in the hall, you are listening to the paper. If the person makes a mistake, you can never understand what he is trying to say because he has personalized the language. He's communicating using a general system, but in a particular, peculiar way. So you will never understand it, except he brings himself back, or maybe you ask question, he now clarifies. So a mistake in speech leads to absurdity, meaninglessness, lack of understanding. But a mistake in language doesn't. No, Felix Ebe, not solipsism. This one is different. What I said is solexism. Solek. Solexism. Okay, SOLECISM. That's absurdity in speech. The absence of absurdity in speech. Okay, not solipsism, it's solexism. Please, I don't know whether this thing is clear. I have made like 3-4 very important differences between the two. An error in language is called solexism. It doesn't lead to meaninglessness or lack of understanding. Why? Because we all know the stock of words you are using. We share the same language. So when you are making an error, even though you are the one that is speaking, I can call you to order. I can say, no, sir, actually, this is what you are trying to say. You made a mistake. I'll say, oh, it's true. I'll go back and correct myself. That is solexism. Because it is maybe misuse or wrong spelling of or pronunciation of a particular word that the person I'm communicating with already knows. But a mistake in speech leads to absurdity. It leads to lack of understanding. It leads to meaninglessness. Why? Because speech is particular to me. I'm the only one that knows the point I'm trying to communicate, I'm trying to make. So you cannot correct me in my own speech. So that's why we say that what? Mistake in speech is more grave than mistake in language. A mistake in language is solipsism, but a mistake in speech is absurdity. So the two are not different, even though they are not the same, even though they are similar or related. Because every speech is made using a particular language. If I'm presenting a speech, I present it in English language. But it is a speech because it is personal. It's my own personal technique of speaking using that language. Okay? I hope it's clear, sir. I hope it's clear. I hope it's clear. So, in chapter 1, these are the two important things I need you to pay attention to. In fact, there are going to be 3. I will go to the next one. The first one is the absurdity. The ambiguity, rather. Ambiguity means the different meanings the English word language can communicate, unlike in other languages like Latin and like French that has different meanings, different words for language. So language, the different meanings language can mean. Language can mean a general way of speaking. It can mean dialect, and it can mean speech. You must know it. Then secondly, Gilbert Rye's differentiation of language and speech. Find a way to know how he differentiated the two. That language is conventional, is general, while speech is particular, is personal. That language is a system, whereas speech is an activity using that system. That a mistake in language is not as grave as a mistake in speech. Why? Because a mistake in language leads to solipsism. It can be, you can make a mistake in language, but the person you are communicating to can still understand you and even correct you. We call it solipsism. But a mistake in speech is grave because it leads to absurdity. When a speaker is delivering a speech and he makes a mistake, he can never be understood as he brings himself. Or you ask a question, he goes back and explains himself. So that's why I call it, it can lead to meaninglessness, it can lead to absurdity, it can lead to a break in communication. Do you understand me? That is it. So very, very important. Now, having clarified the ambiguities in language, we now turn to, and then, and having using Gilbert Rye's contributions to differentiate between speech and language. The next thing we need to do now is, we now have to look at what actually language could mean. What then is language, philosophically speaking? Not philosophy, language, what it is. What is it? What do you think language is? So it is actually very difficult to find one all-encompassing definition for language. It's very, very difficult. Given that language could mean speech, it could mean dialect, it can also mean general convention. So it is difficult. There are actually, scholars are usually very careful to attach a particular significance to a given conceptualization or definition of language. Else, somebody might be misled, or even it may lead to an unending debate. However, there is this definition by T.A. Halley, which we can subscribe to, that language is a formal, sorry. Halley actually agreed to what we have just testified, that there's no formal definition of language, but there is a definition in this book we can use. Since this is the book we are using for the lecture, we can use it. You can also come forward with. Sorry, Patrick Obina, what are you saying? Mistake in language which cannot after meaning. No, what I said is that mistake in language can lead to solipsism. It means that what? It can, even though it's a mistake, the listener can yet make up for that error and understand you somehow. He can even supply for the error. That's why I call it a mistake in language can lead to solipsism. It's an error in language, but the error is not grave because it can be understood by the recipient of the communication. He can even correct you as the person using the original language. You get it? But a mistake in speech leads to meaninglessness, absurdity, because the speech is your personal technique of communicating using general form of language. So it's grave. You can make a mistake in speech, and if you are not called back, the meaning of what you are trying to say will be lost completely. That's what we are trying to say. Remember, that word is not solipsism, it's solexism. Okay. Now, for us, doing philosophy of language, we are going to adapt a possibly all-encompassing meaning of language. So when we talk about language, we refer to all means of communicating with the other as an interlocutor. That's what language is. It refers to all means of communicating, all manner of techniques I apply as an interlocutor in order to do what? Transmit or communicate information from myself to another. All means. It could be sign language, it could be written language, whatever. All means that are applied in order to communicate meaning, to transmit meaning from one person to the other. That is what language is. Okay? So like I said, you can have, language is generally a means of communication. It is the modus or the mode through which information is communicated from one person to another, or from one group of persons to another group of persons, or from one person to a group of persons. So whatever means that is applied to ensure that transmission of information is involved in language. It could be sign, it could be by speech, it could be by dialect, it could be by written form, it could be by oral form, whatever form. So all manner of systems or techniques that are applied in order to communicate information, transmit information from one person to another is what we refer to as language. So you discover that basically what is exchanged through language is information. The essence of language is communication. So all manner of forms, of techniques, of systems, of tendencies, if you like, that are implied or used in transmitting this information, or making sure that information is transmitted, or in making sure that communication is possible, is what we refer to as language. In that sense, you can say that even the dumb, the blind, they have language. You can even suggest that even animals have language. That's the philosophical question to tackle. We still meet it. We are still going to meet it when we discuss some of the problems of language, whether animals can understand or speak language, or whether language, for something to be language, it must be understood. These are things we are going to trash subsequently. Yes, Sika, that is Philosophy of Language by Benjamin Ewelu. That's the book. Yes, Philosophy of Language. Yes. Yes, Obiekwe, as long as there is communication, language is the medium. Yes. Once there is communication, language is implied. Once there is communication, language is implied. There is no communication without language. What makes communication possible is language. And when you talk about people having quarrels or disagreement, it's because of a breach in communication. It's because one has said something and the other did not understand it or did not agree. So once communication is is what's the right word to use? Once communication is perfect, is seamless, there is no misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. Okay? So you can come, you can go research, look for other definitions of language. There is this one I jotted down. So what we talk about in essence, from what I've explained, you can see that language is not only oral speech. It's not only oral speech and written speech, but it includes all neutral signs, natural signs, and conventional what? Symbols. It is not only oral speech or oral communication that is language. Language can involve signs, symbols. It can involve gestures. It can involve gestures. It can involve signals. It can even involve painting. Painting can be communication. Signals, signs, symbols, they are communication. They are language. They are all involved in language. Even body cues. I think you've heard about this word, body language. Body cues. When I do like this, what am I saying? I'm saying yes. That's gesture. It's language. I can do like this. It's gesture. It's language. I can do like this. It's gesture. It's language. I can do like this. You see it. Footballers do it a lot. This is a symbol. Love. Love. All those things are language. So it's not only oral communication. Every means through which communication is effected is what we refer to as language. Are we together? Are we together? So far we have talked about three things. We have talked about the ambiguities associated with the concept and name language. Please stay online. Don't leave. This thing is our lecture period. Don't leave. This is very, very important. Not tomorrow now. You'll be marking somebody's exam, and you don't even know how to help the person again because the person didn't write anything. So we have said three things so far. We have talked about the ambiguity surrounding the concept language, right? Where we talked about three. I will be going back and forth just to make sure I carry everybody. When we talk about the three different meanings language can communicate, language can imply. Language as what? Language as a general means of communication. Language as dialect, referring to a tribe or nation's way of communication. Language as speech. Then we talked about Gilbert Rice's differentiation or how he differentiated between language and speech, right? We talked about that. We talked about him saying that language is a system, is a system, speech is an activity, right? We talk about him saying that language is general, is conventional, but speech is specific, is particular. And we talk about him saying that what? That a mistake in language is solipsism, because it doesn't lead to a breach in communication. Somebody can still be understood when he's making a mistake in language, because the language he's using is communitarian. It belongs to everybody. They don't know what you are trying to say. You can be saying something and you make a mistake. People will correct you. That is language, is lexism. But a mistake in speech is what? Is leads to ambiguity, it leads to absurdity, it leads to meaninglessness, because speech is personal. It's your speech. You are the one making it. Once you make a mistake, nobody knows what you are trying to say. It can lead to total breakdown in communication. So what it means is that what? A mistake in speech is more grave than a mistake in language. And then we have talked about the definition of language. These are the three things we have said so far. Where we said that what? That language involves all manners of signs, gestures, everything that comes to play that makes communication and the transmission of information from one person to another person possible. That is what language is. It could involve symbols, signs, gestures, signals, and so on. These are the three things I said. Now, we are going to look at, let's move a step further. We are going to look at the functions of language. The functions of language. Language has several functions, but for the purpose of examination or assessment, you must be able to know 5. Know all of them, but you should be able to know 5. You must. And then pay particular attention to some of them, because somebody can tell you to explain the performative function of language and you begin to struggle. Now listen. This point I'm trying to make is not explicitly made in the text, but it's important you note it. Now, there are more than, in some texts you see more than 15 functions of language. In some 20, some 7, some 10. But note that, broadly speaking, there are just 2 functions of language. Every other function of language falls within these 2 forms. Broadly speaking, there are 2 major functions of language. You will notice that as we explain ahead, you notice that every other function we are going to talk about will fall within these 2 broad forms. So, the 2 broad functions of language are what? Expressive or communicative function and interpretative function. The first one is expressive or what? Communicative function. The second one is what? Interpretative function. Every other function of language falls within these 2. It is either you are using language to communicate or express. That is 1. Communication or expression is 1. Or you are using language to interpret. There is no any other thing you do while speaking or communicating that doesn't fall inside one of these 2 broad forms. Are we together? Yes. So language has myriads of functions, more than 100. But all of these functions fall within 2 broad headings. 1, either language is used, performs an expressive or communicative function. That is 1. That is 1. Expressive or communicative function. That is 1. Or 2, language is used for interpretation. So language has 2 many functions, but there are 2 major functions. Expressive or communicative function, or that's 1. Then second one, what? Interpretative function. Now check each time you speak or communicate or use language in whatever form, whether gesture, signal, symbol, painting, estate, whatever, you discover that you are either doing these 2 things. You are either communicating or expressing on the one side, or you are either doing what? Interpreting. Are we together? I'm sure we are together. Now, as the name goes, expressive or communicative function of language is 1. Philosophers in this school of thought argue that what? That language has the sole function of helping you initiate and complete communication. You know, communication is expression. If you are speaking now, I'll tell you, express yourself better. That is communication. So they said that is the sole and most important, if not only important, function of language. That language is used for communication, for expression. In language, what matters is transmission of information, right? And for these people, they say that what? The only way you can transmit information is by communicating it or expressing it. Felix Egbe, repeat what? Repeat what, please? Excuse me, let me get a hanky. I'm sweating too much. Sorry, please. Felix Egbe, you said I should repeat what? Is it a function of language? What I said is that what? Language has many functions. You can count more than 100 functions. But all these functions may or could be enlisted under two major functions. There are two major functions. Every other function along the falls under these two. You either have language has is expressive stroke communicative function. That's one. And then the next one is interpretative function. And I was explaining that what? That the first function, communicative, or they are one, is the same thing. Communicative or expressive function is one. To communicate is to express. Is one. They are saying that what? The argument there is that what? That the function of language is to enable, to make possible what? Communication, the transmission of information. And because of that, almost everything we do while we speak language is to express or to communicate ourselves. So they say that that is the major function of language. Right? So for themselves, they even imply that language doesn't necessarily mean communication of words. You can even communicate feelings, emotions, desires, right? Moods using language. So that the foremost, most important, if not only function of language, is communication and expression. Now, communication and expression are not two different functions. They are together. They are one. It's one function, communication or expressive function. When you are communicating, you are expressing. You can communicate your mood. You can communicate your feeling. You can also express it. All of them are communication. Is one function. Is one function. So what it means is that what? For this, it is important to note that the communication or expression they are talking about here is not only oral. It's not even only about using words. They are talking about, it could be psychological, where you are able to use gestures to communicate your emotions, your feelings, your attitudes, your frustrations, and so on. All those things are expression and communication. In this regard, even symbols are when you use symbols to communicate something. For instance, some of the symbols we have in the church. Okay, let's use conventional symbols. You are a driver, and you're on the highway, and you see the traffic light, right? You see traffic light. Traffic light has how many colors? You have green, red, and amber color, right? Nothing is spoken there. I hope you can you hear me, please? I don't know what's this again. Can you hear me? Yes, yes. Exactly. Hello, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? 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 If you can hear me, say yes, please. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Please, if you can hear me, say hello or say yes. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Ouch. Hello. Say hi if you can hear me, please. Okay, okay. I presume you can hear me. I'm just hoping that communication is going through. If you can hear me, just say hi, please. Say hi. Say hi. Let me see. I want to be sure, so that it doesn't seem as if I'm communicating with myself alone. Ezekiel Christian, can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Okay, okay. Let's just continue. Even if you can't hear me, maybe subsequently when you go through the live, you can follow, you can flow. So that is for expressive and or communicative function of language, right? That is one of the major poles of the function of language. Then the next one is interpretative function of language. Language also has rather an interpretative function. Here, language we use language according to scholars to reconcile, understand, interpret the events in our environment. Remember what Heidegger says: man is a being in the world. What remember what what's his name? Remember what Husserl says. Hmm? That we'll try to know things from the perspective of the first person and even gather my of horizons. So a kind of language has a hermeneutic function. And this hermeneutic function concerns the fact that what? Every human person lives in a given environment. So if you live in a given environment, what enables you, what enables you to cope with that environment, to understand the realities in that environment, to communicate with the individuals in that environment, to understand what the individuals in that environment are saying, both the biotic and both the biotic and abiotic elements in that environment, to understand what they are saying. That is both the living and non-living components in that environment. You need language. So in this regard, language has an interpretative or hermeneutic function, not just an expressive function. Because what these guys are saying is that what? It is not every time when you use language that you are communicating. Sometimes when you use language, you use it to understand, you use it to interpret. You use it to interpret. So it is not every time you use language that you express, you are expressive or being expressive or communicative. Sometimes you use it to help another person to be expressive, and that is an interpretative function of language. Right? Okay, you can even be in a particular environment. Right? You can be in a particular environment. You are just there to learn about the environment. That learning, you are using language to learn, and that is interpretative, it's hermeneutic. It's hermeneutic. So this is the other school of thought about the broad function of language. So for them, language, apart from having a communicative or expressive function, it also has an interpretative function, because language, look, it is very important to see, to grasp the perspective of the explanation. Interpretative function of language suggests that language enables us to understand, to cope, to adapt to the different stimuli we experience in our environment. So for them, language has an adaptative interpretive function, because it is with language and through language that we learn about our environment. We cope with events in our environment. We are able to commingle with the people and the things that live with us in the environment. Language makes that commingling possible. I'm just hoping that you can still hear me. I hope you can still hear me, please. I hope. Right? Wodo Nathaniel, if you are there, say hi. Say hi. Say hi if you are there, please. If you are there, say hi, please. I don't know what. Please, if you can hear me, can you just drop a comment? Can you drop a comment if you can hear me? I need to be sure that communication is seamless. Okay. Are you there? Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me? Hear me? Okay. Now let me just breeze through. So apart from these two major functions of language we have talked about, there are many other functions of language. There are many other functions of language. There is the control function of language. There is the remembering or thinking function of language. There is the discovery function of language, social function, creative function, and so on. So I will just briefly pick some of them and explain. So what you notice immediately is that what these other functions of language I'm going to about, they somehow fall within those two broad forms I mentioned earlier. They somehow fall within those two broad functions I mentioned earlier. So when you talk about the control function of language, control or directive function of language. So here we talk about the fact that language is used to control or to get attention of others. It is used to direct, to control, to guide, or to get attention of others. So the control function of language is usually directed to others. It is. For instance, when you tell somebody, it's a control function because you are guiding the person, you are directing the person. You tell the person this way, go there, stay here. That's the control function. It's directive. But you can see that this same control or directive function falls within one of those two, which is what? Communicative or expressive function. So, in essence, what this function is telling us that what we use language to control or to influence people's behavior, people's attitude, people's tendencies, people's way of life. Okay? When you want to tell somebody how to behave, the right mode of action, you want to direct persons, tell somebody the right path to follow. You are using language, and the function language is performing for you in that regard is a control or directive function. But the point you are making here is that what you can see that this same function is largely broadly within those two major functions we earlier mentioned. It is either within interpretative or what, or expressive or communicative function. And in this regard, it is interpretative or what, or control. Or then there is remembering or thinking function of language. It's the remembering or thinking function of language. Language also has a remembering or thinking function. In fact, some scholars will also meet this as a problem of translation, problem of language in philosophy. Scholars argue that what somebody like Ludwig Wittgenstein and some of them, that our thought that language is the vehicle that when we think, we actually think in language. That no thinking can happen outside language. That is Ludwig Wittgenstein's position. And just check yourself whenever you are thinking. Is it possible to think without using language? It's not possible. So when we remember and when we think, language performs a function for us because we think and remember using language. So language is actually the vehicle of thought. It's the vehicle of memory. It is the vehicle of fantasy. It is the vehicle of every mental activity. Everything that happens inside our mind, in our senses, when we think, when we imagine, when we fantasize, we do them using language. In that regard, language has a thinking function or a remembering function, a memory function. Okay? So, and this is where you can make a case for the deaf and the dumb, that they too use language because they have mind, they have thinking faculty, they process information. Okay? Then there is the identification function of language. This one is very simple. Identification function of language. That language is used to give identification, name, identity to persons, to things, to places. When I say I am affirming my identity. I do that using language. Me, you, others, not me, they, and so on. So language has an identity role. It plays an identity role. If we want to identify anything, to name anything, to call anything, we do that using language. We do that using language. So it is language that helps us to affirm, to name, to identify, to say who we are, to say what something is. It is through language that we do that. So language has an identification function in that regard. So you can even use language in that regard too, to speak about, it's the same thing as identification. You can use language to tell somebody about Germany, it's still identifying, about Koreans, about Nigerians, and so on. So it has an identifying function. When we try to identify or to name something or to define something, we use language. So language has a definite and identity function. When we define a thing, when we say what something is, this thing is this, it is not this. We do that using language. Then there's also the social function of language. Language also has a social function. This social function is related to identity function because it is through language that we understand and we know, understand, and play our roles in society. For instance, socialization cannot be possible without language, and socialization is the means through which we are taught about our roles, our place, our values in our given society. So what makes socialization possible is language, and in that regard, language has a social function because what gives us, it is through language that we receive our social status. What makes us who we are, what gives us within our society is language. So language has a social function, and this social function is very much related, it's close to identification function. Identification function concerns the fact that it is through language we name things, we identify things. But in social function, we are saying that it's through language that we receive our social status, we become who we are in the society. It is through language that socialization is made possible. Okay? So, in fact, it is language that makes social stability, harmony, and relationship possible within the society because language ensures social communication. Okay, if social communication is not possible, we cannot use language. So language makes it possible, and because of that, language has a social function. Okay. So still on the aspect of social function, you discover that language, I've said, it makes communication possible. We joke, we crack joke, we use proverbs, and so on. All those we do using language. So, in fact, what we are saying by social function of language is that what? Human social activities, they are they won't be possible. They wouldn't be possible without what? Without language. Then language also has a creative function. Okay? From the way the name is, language has a creative function. When we write drama, we act plays, we perform imaginative roles, all those we do using language. Even when we think about a work of art, we create it, for instance, like a sculptural work, drawing, and so on. We do those things using language. We do them using language. Even the drawing is language in itself, because it is through language in the mind that we are able to do what? To or bring forward the particular shape we have and place it on paper. So language has a creative function because it is the instrument of creativity. That's what it's saying. Language is the instrument. You can write. I'm back. Sorry. You can write. I'm back. Sorry. You can see me now, right? You can see me now, right? I'm here. I'm here. I hope you can see me. I hope you can see me. I'm here, please. Okay. So we have touched on so many functions of language already. Function. I was talking about informative function, just as the name goes. In fact, if you are listening closely, you see that all these functions fall within one or more of the two headings we already mentioned. So, informative function is communicative and expressive function. Okay, it is through language that we pass information, we transmit information. Now, I was rushing so that we can meet this performative function because it's very important. It's one of the contributions of a major scholar of philosophy of language, J.L. Austin. I don't know, you must have met this name in logical positivism, if you did it, or in analytic philosophy already. J.L. Austin. For J.L. Austin, he posited that language has, above every other thing, a performative function. Language, the major function of language is to enable performance. That every language has a performative function. This one is his own contribution to the functions of language. And now, this performative function is tripartite. It has three forms or three aspects. So performative function of language could be locutionary, illocutionary, or perlocutionary. What this man is saying is that what? Every time we use language, whatever language we use, has these three functions. Now, the locutionary function talks about the language itself. What we say. That is it. It's a function because language is spoken, is a spoken word or words. For J.L. Austin, when you say come, talking, you have spoken. That is, language has played a performative function, but that aspect of performative function is locutionary. Now, when you say come, listen, when you say come, the person begins to come. Language has performed another aspect, another function, which is illocutionary, because now the person is performing the action. He's now coming. Now, then there is perlocutionary function, P-E-R, locutionary function. That function is the consequence of the spoken language. You understand me? So there is, in performance function of language, as attributed to J.L. Austin, each spoken language has three functions. It has locutionary function, illocutionary function, and the perlocutionary function. The locutionary function is the actual spoken language, the talking. The illocutionary function is the action, the language prompts. The action the language prompts. While the perlocutionary function is the consequence of the action the language prompts. Is it clear? When I say come, locutionary, you start coming. That's the action. You start coming. That is illocutionary. Now, if you now come, or as you are coming, you now do something. That is the consequence. That is perlocutionary. I hope it's clear. And if you look at it, he makes sense, even though you might say it's extreme. Because philosophically, you might begin to question whether every time you say something, these three sides of the language occur. Is it every time that you use language that these three sides are manifested, that the language has a locutionary effect, an illocutionary effect, and a perlocutionary effect? Is it every spoken language that comes with talking, that comes with action, and that also comes with consequences? That is what performative function of language is. If you disagree with him, you should find a way to criticize him. But I think he's making sense. He makes sense. He makes sense. For instance, now you can use many ways to explain it. For instance, lovely badminton, I can see you. For instance, you say, I ask a question. Who is Socrates? That is locutionary. Somebody, a student, seeker stands up and answer. That is illocutionary, because that is the action, the response to the locution, to the speech, to the language. Then if he answers correctly, is the consequence. That is perlocutionary function of language. I hope it's clear. This is very, you see, I'm taking my time to explain this thing. I'm taking my time. Tomorrow now, you ask somebody to explain performance function of language, he will do as if he never heard it. And those people are the people that are never present in class. Look at them, they are not here. Only 31 persons are here. Tomorrow you want to help a student, how do you help? Because he's not even available for classes. Okay, look at the example this person gives. If someone says, madman, come here, and you come, and then you come and feel bad because of the word madman referred to. Yes, it's correct. Can you break this into the three forms? Can you break it? This is your example now. You have the three forms. But can you break which one here is locutionary? Which one is illocutionary? Which one is perlocutionary? Break this your answer. Let me see. Break it here on screen. If someone says, madman, come here, and you come, and then you come and feel bad because of the word madman referred to you, break it. Which one is locutionary? Which one is illocutionary? Which one is perlocutionary? From this your example. Okay, I'm waiting for you to break it in the screen. Sika says the come here is locutionary. Very good. Which one is illocutionary? Emmanuel Chiemere, how about unspoken language? Unspoken language, yes, that's where you can critique him. Sorry, Chiemere Emmanuel, you have a point there. How about unspoken language? That is an area you can critique him. But you will notice that J.L. Austin's view doesn't accommodate unspoken language. He's only talking about spoken language, because when you talk about locution, you are talking about spoken language already. So his idea already, relegates unspoken language, gestures, and the rest of them. It doesn't, because it's locution. When you talk about locution, you're talking about spoken, something that is spoken. So if you want to use that to criticize him, you have to begin by saying that what? He already, by talking about performative function of language and classify them into locutionary, illocutionary and perlocutionary, he has already relegated the possibility of unspoken language. If you come in from there, you will hit him very well. Okay, locutionary is the command to come here. The illocutionary is the response command, and the perlocutionary is the filling bar. Yeah, very good, very good. Because so that's correct. That's correct too. Okay, that's correct. Now that is for performance function of language. Remember, it is J.L. Austin's contribution. Then there is another one. There is an aesthetic function of language. From the name aesthetic, what do you think that this function of language is? What do you think it is? Aesthetic function of language. Okay, aesthetic function of language, just like the name goes, is the role of language is language functions as the tool through which we make visible the beauty of the world. In essence, every artwork, the beauty of the arts, the sculptural works, and so on, the beauty of the world, each time we try to represent the beauty of the world through art, through words, through poetry, through whatever means of creativity, we are using language aesthetically. That is aesthetic function of language. You can see that this aesthetic function of language is similar to the creative function of language I discussed earlier. Somehow is a mere change of nomenclature, but they are very much related. So what this means is that what? Even language has aesthetic function, and the aesthetic function of language is that what? It is through language that we communicate the beauty of the universe, the beauty of the world. If you see the ocean is very beautiful, you express it. It's through language, that aesthetic function. You put it down on paper, you draw it. That's aesthetic function. Okay? Yes, communicating beauty, very good. Expressing beauty, very good. Emmanuel Chebere says it already. Honora says it already. Then storage function, as the name goes. So when you talk about storage function, you can even call it historical function of language. Language is the means we use to do what? To do what? To preserve history, artifacts, norms, and so on. Without language, all the things we know about Socrates that happened thousands of years before us, we wouldn't have learned them. Technology is possible only through language, aesthetic, dissenting, ethics. Okay? All what we learn, in fact, storage function, our values that we inherited and learned from, that is passed from through tradition, from generation to generation, without language, the storage function of language, we wouldn't have learned those things. Our history, the roles our ancestors and parents played in the past that were communicated with us, without the storage function of language, those things wouldn't have been communicated to us. So language has a storage function in the sense that it is used to preserve and transmit history. That's why I said maybe in the examination hall, if you are running into confusion, you can use historical function to rename it, because that thing is talking about language as a means of preserving history, values, and so on. Yes, that's why. Yeah, guys. That's why there are terms as prehistoric and historic times. Yes, it is because of the storage function of language that we have this prehistoric and historic times. Yes, because history starts with writing and storing. Exactly. Yes. Ezekwe Christian says language is used for documentation. That is it. Perfect. Perfect. Michael Ulisa, we can say language has emotive function as a way of communicating one's view. Yes. Language has emotive function. Remember, I told you, see the list in this book. If you go out, you see many other functions. Language also has a moral function or ethical function. You get? But remember what I said at the beginning of the lecture. Remember what I said at the beginning of the lecture. All these functions fall under two broad headings: communicative or expressive function and what? Interpretative function. So if you check all these things we are saying now, emotive function, performative function, storage function, aesthetic function, all whatnot, they all fall under those two major headings. Now, the last subtype we are going to look at is provocative function. Provocative function. This one from the term provocative, what do you think is the function of language there? Provocative function of language. What do you think? What do you think? Provocative function. Francis N says educative function. Yes. Like the one we are doing now is educative function of language. Language is the tool for teaching and learning. To cause something like what? To arouse emotion. See, what provocative means is that function means is that language it is a tool that is used to incite. You know what it means to incite? To arouse people's emotion, to provoke action, to move people, to propel people into action. Do you understand me? That's what provocative function is. Language is the tool we use to spur, to elicit, to catalyze, to pull and push people into some form of action. This is where we talk about the sophistic function of language. We talk about sophistry, oratory, speech making, and the rest of them. All those use of language fall within the function of provocative, the function of language as provocative, or the provocative function of language. So, yeah, somebody said to prompt action, to prompt into action. Yes, it is language we use to prompt action, to pull and push people. For instance, now, you know this popular Nigerian activist, Sowore. If he gathers people and begin to tell them, this country is too bad, the politicians are evil, we cannot continue like this, let us protest. He is using the provocative function of language because he is, yes, to evoke feelings. Because he's trying to pull the people to action. In fact, to simplify it, just say that provocative function of language is the use of language to call people to action. That's what provocative function of language is. It is the use of language to call people into action, to push people to act. When you say we must put this to an end. We cannot continue like this. We must speak. We must protest. That is provocative function of language. Okay, so you can use provocative function of language both positively and negatively. It doesn't mean that it must be negative, right? It's not about quarreling. It is about using language to incite, to arouse, to spur emotion. It could be positive or negative emotion. Yes, somebody said rhetorics. Yes, so rhetorical speaking, motivational speaking, speech making, and sophistic speaking, even dialogical conversations, they all fall within provocative functions of language. Now, the last thing that we must consider in this chapter is, since we have looked at the function of language, the ambiguities concerning the concept of language, the difference between speech and language, and even the definition of language. Now, we are going to cap it up with a definition of philosophy of language. Philosophy of language in this text, in this book, you can't find the definition there. It's not defined. The man just went about explaining the history. As you already know, analytic philosophy is very much related to philosophy of language. Philosophy of language is a recent development of philosophy. It doesn't mean that before the emergence of philosophy of language as a separate discipline, people were not speculating about language. Yes, thank you, Ezekiel Christian, to persuasive, yes. Persuasive use of language is also is provocative, yes, it is, thank you. So people were actually speculating about language and the problems of language, but not under the formal heading of philosophy of language. It was with the rise of people like we talk about the Vienna cycle, the verificationists, logical positivists of the Vienna cycle, Rudolf Carnap, Quine, and the rest of them, even J.L. Austin, and then with the rise of analytic philosophy. Yes, in preaching also, thank you. In preaching, ethics guys, you are very correct. In preaching, we use provocative language. We use it. Very good. In preaching, I like the fact that in this way, it shows that you understood it. Yes. Who is this? You are correct. You are correct. AJ Regnat, you are correct. To deliberate, to steer emotions and also create controversy. Yes, the language we use to steer emotion and create controversy. Yes, it is. Don't worry. I know you have another lecture. I'm summarizing, okay? At 11, sorry, I'm summarizing. Your lecture is not at 11. It's supposed to be at 11:30. Kingsley Amuchi, is it not 11:30? Your break is at 11. But don't worry, I'm already summarizing, okay? I'm already summarizing. I will leave you very soon. Then Francis N. Yes, it is the same. It is what we use in convincing people too. Yes, it is. Let me just summarize. So I was just talking about. Okay, shifted it to 11. Don't worry, Sika, I'm almost done. Let me just round up this chapter, okay? I'm done. We are going. I just want to be sure. So you may not find the definition of philosophy of language here, but if tomorrow you are asked to define it, what you see here is the history. So philosophy of language is a branch of philosophy that investigates the nature of language, the relation between language, how they are used, and the world. So it investigates the nature of language, the relationship between language and the world in which they are used. That's what philosophy of language is. Philosophy of language is a branch of philosophy that investigates the nature of language, the use of language, the implication of language. Then it deliberates on the relationship of language with the world to which language refers to. That's what philosophy of language is. So the major sign, the primary matter is language. And it is the nature of this language, the implication of use of language, and the relationship between language and the world. Most importantly, the relationship between language and the world. How does language relate to the world? What is it that makes language relate to a particular? If I say boy, what is it that makes that language boy refer to a male in the world? That is what philosophy of language investigates. So the relationship of language and the world. Okay. So for those of you that are present, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. This is how we are going to be doing it. Thank you so much. Remember, I said we are going to have one of our tests. There will be two tests. We are going to have one because I'll provide evidence before you go on Easter break. So find time to study this, to listen to this lecture content here online. Find time. To summarize, don't worry, we are okay. Don't worry, we are done. Most of you are already notifying me that it's 10:55. All right, I'll leave you now. I'll see you next time. Thank you for your time. I appreciate. God bless you. See you. Thank you, Sika. Thank you so much. All right, goodbye. Have a blessed day.